Hey everyone, this is SM Pratt, and it's time again for the best time of the month, the March 2021 Patreon exclusive monthly market recap video. I know I say it every single month that this past month was crazy, but I think we expected the 25th anniversary to be special, and it was. We have so much to go through. It's going to be a long one. There's going to be a lot of analysis, a lot of discussion. We're going to talk about PS7 Illustrator. We're going to do the deepest dive on that. I have the most information to talk about. I'm just going to speak freely as usual. But before that, we're going to get started with the consignment update. As most people know, I do consignments now, so I'm going to try to update people every month, just keep you in the loop. Naturally, because this is just a branch of SM Pratt, it's not the only thing I do. It's going to be a little more informal. I'm clearly not PWCC doing thousands and thousands of cards. But to keep people updated who were interested in submitting things this month, the deadline will probably be in about a week-ish. I'm going to try to get the cards up in the middle of March. I already have a few people who submitted things to me. This round, I'm going to do them through my eBay and, of course, the video as well. For the people who want to do the PWCC hybrid, that's still in the works. I'm still trying to figure it out with Brent. And basically trying to coordinate, when I get the cards in-house and then matching that with when they end with PWCC and also working out payment. I know a couple of you reached out on that. And basically, I just need enough to justify it. And right now, it's still in process. The majority of people want to go directly through me. So again, if you are interested in doing that, my typical barrier is like 10K. That doesn't have to be one card. It can be multiple cards. Don't send me like 100,000 energies though for $10,000. But that's typically the baseline to make it worth everyone's time. I certainly cater to the higher end. You can see the proof in the pudding with the record sales, which we'll get through. I'm going to analyze that as objectively as possible. So there you go. That's the current consignment update, and I'll keep this rolling every single month to keep you in the loop. Now, let's get into the fun stuff. We're going to start with Modern. Modern's got a lot to talk about, starting with EV Heroes. EV Heroes was the talk of the town, and then the next day happened, and we moved on to the next thing. But EV Heroes looks like a very exciting set. It's really tough to critique, and I think the only thing I can really emphasize is that if it is a main set, like Vivid Voltage, I still think it's going to be okay. If anything, I think Vivid Voltage is what we can look at as our market indicator. In my opinion, it's a very good set. Pikachu heavy. In fact, the only Pikachu focused set I think ever. So I would put Eevee in that same class of like Pikachu Charizard where you can carry a set, especially if they do all the evolutions. I'm not a big Eevee collector, but I think it's cool to have that identity. Also, we have more information than usual, which I thought was interesting. We had like a box art and people knew a bit more about what was going to be in the set. Usually that doesn't come until like 2 months later. Typically it's like a stock image and then like some mistranslated title, and then like 2 months later we figure out what it is. But this one, right out of the gate, we had more information. So I personally ordered 30 cases. I'm going to try to get more of it. I doubt I'll get even half that. Like, the deal at this point. That's what it is. You try to order as much as you can. You get maybe a little pittance. So I'll be excited no matter what I get. But it's something that I'm definitely bullish on, again, because of the indicators that we have. And even if it is like Vivid Voltage, where it's a main set, the proof's in the pudding. Vivid Voltage is doing very well. If you have an Eevee, catered, centered set, especially with the evolutions, I think that's going to be a home run. So I'll keep this in Modern. We'll probably touch back when I have more information every month. Kind of like we did, perfect segue, with Shining Fates. Let me take a sponsored sip. Shining Fates is now here, and we've already moved on to the next thing. That's just the state of the hobby right now. It's like, okay, Shining Fates arrived, now let's put it in the back and move on to the next. But a quick update on Shining Fates. It has finally released. It's pretty much what everyone expected. Pretty popular, pretty exciting. The supply is definitely cut. I ordered like 5 or 6 cases, maybe got 2. I think I got 2 cases of ETBs. And what surprised me on the other end, I thought the premium would be a little bit higher. I was actually pleasantly surprised how much was available, at least as I'm making this video. So that's something that was pleasantly surprising, in that I thought it would be so just gone. Like I thought it'd be wiped out because of all like the adult vultures out there. But it is hovering around the 100-ish price tag. I'll be curious to see what the added supply will do. There's supposed to be more and more supply, kind of like Hidden Fates with the revolving door. I'll be really curious to see what that does. And again, another nice segue, revolving into the next topic that I wanted to talk about. There are rumors about everything from Sword and Shield all the way down to Summon Sun and Moon getting a reprint. And let me emphasize, bold italicize the word rumor. You really need to temper yourself here that rumor is not guaranteed. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care who you are. I know Rudy's talked about publicly a little bit. It's through the grapevine of like distributors and businesses. There's rumors that a lot of this new stuff is going to get more quantity, more product. We don't know what that's going to be. And let me try to break that down. Why I'm trying to emphasize it's a rumor so much is because it could be nothing. It could be a drop in the bucket. It could be a tidal wave of product. When we had this actually happen back in 2017, everyone tried to like surmise why was Pokemon doing this, right? Like they're trying to figure out what was going on that made them do this unprecedented reprint of Roaring Skies. Because at the time it was $300 a box. Shaman was about 100-ish for the full art. And then after that, they did this tidal wave option, $80, $90 for like years. It was just too much product, but it brought prices down, which is what they wanted. So a lot of people speculated Roaring Skies is very playable. Shaman was very playable. Is it because, they wanted to get more out there for the players? Probably. That was probably a factor. But then they did something with Ancient Origins, Primal Clash. Like, who needed a Primal Clash reprint? But they did it. So my point is even when we think we know the reasons why something's going to happen or someone said it, Pokemon is just as whimsical as it gets. If they decide they want to do Primal Clash for no kind of reason, they're going to give you Primal Clash. Like, that's just what they're going to do. So there's no real way to know 100%. That's all I'm trying to say. There might be truth in this, and again, it might be nothing, might be a drop in the bucket, it might be a tidal wave of product. It's just something that we heard. It's something that's out there. It may or may not happen, and even if it does, we don't know why and how much it's going to happen. So that's what I wanted to say. Also, going deeper into the rumor mill, talk about the printers. Into the rumor printers, people talk about the extra printers for product. Again, it's something that's been discussed. We don't know for sure. We don't know any parameters. It's an idea that's out there. Do I think it's needed? Absolutely. And in my public video, I hope they find a balance in the middle, because I think that's where the answer is for everybody. So it's a wait and see. But again, I'm just trying to emphasize this is something that's out there. It's a rumor. We don't know. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. And kind of tying in the Shining Fates thing, one other mention I want to throw out there is, when I talk about Shining Fates, you probably noticed I said 30 cases of Eevee Heroes and only like 5 are Shining Fates. And you're like, hang on, the math is a little off there. Modern English is super speculative. It's kind of like a little side tangent, just an analysis. Modern English is the most speculative category in all of Pokemon. And I said this before. It's because a robot can buy a modern product. Not even like a modern robot, like one from like 100 years ago in the assembly line of a Ford Model T can go into a store, pick up box, put it in their cart. That's this market. Where with Japanese, there's so many barriers to entry. Number one, distributors don't deal with overseas businesses anymore. They cut that tie. I have people that we could file under the creative category. They get creative and they're like, hey, if I join your 500 tier Patreon for a month, will you give me access to Japanese distributor? Maybe if you threw a couple more zeros there, maybe I'd consider that. But, there's a lot of people who are really trying to get in there because they want that lower price or better margin. And it's just not possible. There's so many barriers. More specifically, you can't just go to Target and buy that Japanese item, Eevee Heroes or whatever it is. You can't do that. You got to find a way, put in a little more effort, be a little more creative. So all of those things are barriers to entry. And that is why English Modern is very speculative. Does that mean it's going to just be a zero sum? It's all bad? That's not what I'm implying. I'm just trying to isolate that there is more speculation with English Modern. That doesn't mean it's black or white. It's just that category has the most. And right now, as it stands, demand is so high and strong that speculation as it stands is almost irrelevant, because it's just like there's not enough product in stores even for the casual person to buy right now. So anyway, just trying to emphasize why I'm not as bullish on English Modern. I still buy it, just not as bullish, again, because of that speculation that exists with it that doesn't really exist with any other category. One more thing, I think it's like a good segue. Well, I guess 2 more things. Let's do PSA first. That just came out before I sat down. PSA's upping their prices. This should be a quick conversation. It's needed. Of course, nobody wants to pay more, but that's the only way to slow down the backlog. And I made a meme on E4, sponsored by Ethan, 4-star TCG, where I was like, yeah, PSA cards have risen like 10 times in value, but people are losing their minds over 2 times the cost to get them graded. It's long overdue. Again, do I want to pay more? Does anybody want to pay more? No, of course. But it's really the only realistic solution to slowing down the backlog. And that's what they're doing. And this isn't unique to any company. This isn't just PSA. Any company is going to do the same thing they already have, and they will again. Because when demand keeps increasing, this is just what you have to do. It's part of the game. So anyway, that's why I wanted to mention. One other, I think, little caveat is that, the new owners can't be responsible for what the previous owners did. When people are piling on about PSA, it's like people just bought that company. It's like they can't just, Arculus Reparo and like completely redo all of PSA in one magic motion. So, that's another thing to consider. I'm always on that side of understanding patience and, long-term outlook. So that's what helps me sleep at night. And I'm just trying to impart that wisdom to people who are frustrated. It's something that was needed and long overdue. Again, your PSA card prices have gone up 10x and more. And we just had a finally adult, only on certain categories too. Like not everything jumped the same way. So it's needed. It needed to happen. It's just par for the course. And hopefully it does reduce the backlog. That's the goal. Like if I could pay $20 a card and my card comes back faster, that's good news for me. I'd rather have the upfront costs and the time value. That's good news for me. And, for people who are frustrated and they're like, yeah, I don't sell cards, just space it out over time, or, don't grade cards. Like my favorite stuff is in a binder. I'm just trying to give you options. But yeah, either way, from a market perspective, it was long overdue. Now, getting into the last topic of modern, it kind of bridges us between modern and vintage. World's cards have increased, and I'm going to give you a theory, in my opinion, a valuable theory why. Worlds hasn't happened for a couple years. Therefore, you don't have the artificial pricing of people who don't know the market dumping cards. And this is a very risky, but I think pointed observation, and it's going to tie in the recent $110,000 trophy card. That $110,000 trophy card is an example of the joke I always say at PFM about the $1 million knowledge that I possess. This is one branch of it coming out for anyone who's in this tier of 20, 500, whatever you're paying. I've known that these cards have gone well above what people have been selling them for a long time. To the extreme where like people will be at Worlds, in one hand look at the card from the winner, and then the other hand flipping it to me, like one happy family, all holding hands through the flipping process. That's how it's been for a long time. Even my first Worlds, which is like 10 years ago now, which is crazy. I remember guys coming up to me, hey, would you buy this for like, back then it was a couple $1,000s. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And it would be right there. They just bought it from the winner and they're flipping it to me. Point being is, these are artificial prices. It's kind of like when you see something on Mercari that's underpriced and it's gone in a second, right? Like $1,000 base set box. That's clearly an artificial price. That's what you had with Worlds for the longest time. To go further into this idea, like when you see on Verbank some guy who's like, hey, I just won the senior second place TCG division. Here's my card. I won 10K for it. A lot of people who see that, that's their only data point, only reference, like, oh, it's only worth 10K, right? And for people like me, it's like I've had $500,000 on my Pika sets that I've declined because it's just not worth it, And to go deeper in that, it's not worth it for me. It's like, let's talk about the 110K sale. Great sale, right? It's not worth it for me to sell one of those cards I won't ever get again, especially with the increased price point, to pay maybe a fifth of my income tax on the year. It's just not worth it. That money's just going to go away. It's going to go straight to the government. It's not something I would do. I'd rather just take that from my other income revenue and my other income streams rather than give up this asset that I'm never going to get again. And it's only going to age with time. So outside of my little SM Pratt little therapy session there, that's just, I'm trying to break down not only the reasons why, but the perspective behind it. And that perspective, I think, is valuable, for me, because I don't think it's unique to me. I think most people who hold these cards at this point, outside the winners, don't have a motivation to sell. Unless you're going to give them a hand over fist price, there's no motivation for them to sell because they're going to be in that same position where it's like you're going to lose a lot of this money to taxes, or you're going to be in a situation now where you have this capital and it's like, okay, what do I do? And I think a lot of people when they hear 100,000, like, yeah, that's good money. It is. In the short term especially, it's great. But, it's not going to, you're not going to retire off of $100,000. Like, it's not going to be something that, can really you could just beat the game. Like, you might have beat a level, you might have speed run this part of it, but there's still a lot of hustling you got to do. So just trying to break down that those Worlds cards have had a strong uptick on my end, not just the trophies. I think I consigned that 2013, it'll be on sales later, 2013 top 16, like near mint ungraded, high hundreds. Even the stuff like that, typically like the early ones are the more popular ones. The high graded copies right now, I'm getting a ton of attention on PSA 10, PSA 9. I'm declining and raising prices because I don't want to sell. It's that same category. Even people who come to me with 10K, right, it's a good amount of money. That's a good offer. But I'm not going to get that card again in PSA 10. Like, I've graded half the pop of Worlds cards. Like, no exaggeration. Like, half that pop is SM Pratt. Like, I've loved Worlds cards from day one. I've always bought them, graded them, everything. And I know for sure, like without a doubt, that they are very hard to grade. And I could probably count every single 10 I've ever gotten. So therefore, just trying to break down the full like markets perspective and analysis. And I think a big role again is because these people who win the tournament aren't typically like collectors. They're not engaged in the secondhand market. And a lot of them, frankly, just don't care. They just want the cash. Like if you give them 10K cash, especially to a teenager, like sweet, like I can buy a car or something. I can put that as a down payment towards my like Mustang with spinners or whatever the cool kids are doing now. That's what a lot of, I'm not trying to chirp these kids here, but it's like that's just where they are. They don't value the card and are aware of the secondhand market, and they don't mind just dumping it for cash in hand. So that's what I mean by the artificial pricing. Because Worlds is halted, you don't have that process. So that's partly why that card hit what it did. Kudos to the person who sold it and bought it. I mean, you got a piece of history, and the person who sold it basically publicly revealed what a lot of people knew who were in that circle of dealing with these cards. A lot of people were aware of that for a long time. I've had six-figure offers on my Pikas for a long time. And it's just one of those things I kept quiet about because, it's just basically self-sabotage to talk about it. Again, PFM ever ups his Patreon tier, he'll hear the shout out again about the $1 million knowledge. But there it is. That's the world situation. I think those artificial pricing or whatever, that not existing, this made people aware, like, oh, that sold for that price. Now they have a public data point, to make that awareness more available, that rarity awareness more available. Segueing again, I feel like I'm saying segueing every 5 seconds. One other thing I want to say with 25th anniversary before we get into PWCC and all the high-end stuff. I thought everything that happened was fantastic. Post Malone, I thought it was great. The new games, like let's talk about the new games real quick. The Diamond and Pearl remakes, everybody's excited. I saw TikToks of guys, like they're just happy. Like these people are just happy. Like they're happy to see the game they played. I feel old that like Diamond and Pearl is getting a remake, like 15 years later. But that's what it is. People are happy to see that. I feel the same way. Like if I saw Red and Blue, like fully fleshed out Switch, like basically like Let's Go. Let's Go is a little bit simplified, but that's okay. It's still exciting to see Pallet Town in 3D, and that's an exciting thing going on. The Arceus game, if it's like Breath of the Wild, I'm going to have to go into hibernation. I'm already behind. I'm going to have to take like a month off and just like immerse myself if that ends up. I'm like scared for how good it's going to be. I'm honestly scared how good that game is going to be. So that's exciting. Post Malone thing was really great. I just wanted to emphasize how I think that's going to be a moment that kids are going to remember when they get older. For example, I remember going to the Pokemon first movie, watching Pikachu's Vacation. My friend was there and his mom was crying when Pikachu or Ash turned into stone. I remember that. Like that was a part of my nostalgia. And I think that's what that Post Malone thing is going to be. I think it was a nice mixture of like what we could expect for Pokemon Snap. Really cool concept. It was cute. Yes, I'm a grown man saying cute. I think it was just well executed. I think it was what it intended to be it hit the bullseye for what it was supposed to do. And yeah, I can't emphasize enough. I think kids are just that's gonna be cemented into their mind, no pun intended. Like, Ash turning into stone in the Pokemon movie. I think that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be one of those moments that people are gonna look back fondly on and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I watched it on 25th anniversary. So anyway, just adding that little positivity in there before we get into the deep state analytics again, because I think it's just a lot of big macro indicators that things are good in the short term or on the horizon for Pokemon. There's just so much to get excited about. It's really hard to be cynical right now about the hobby at large because there's so much going on. All you have to do is just avoid the noise you don't like, but there's just so much going on right now. Now, getting into vintage. Vintage, we have a lot of analysis to go through. Don't worry, we got two over here. We got a backup. This is a 2 coconut water video. I knew this was going to be long, a lot of talking. We're going to start with PSA 9 Trophy Kangaskhan. As you know, I sold that as a consignment from one Patreon member to another. There's a lot to go through here. First and foremost, the deal couldn't have been any smoother as far as like buyer, seller, paying. It was like that meme you saw of like $500 buyer versus $50,000 buyer, and the $500 buyer is like, okay, I want a 20% ROI over 5 years on this purchase. What do you think the expectation is going to be long term? And the $50,000 buyer is like, money sent, thanks. That's exactly how this guy was. Longtime Patreon member. Couldn't have been any smoother. The only hiccup was FedEx being delayed because of the winter storm, but everything was fine. Just wanted to give that person a shout out. But again, it went through one member to another. One thing I wanted to say, and it's kind of a self-promotion, but it made me aware of like how much of Patreon is the upper crust of the market. Even the PSA 7 Illustrator owner is in here in Patreon. There's a lot of, I would say safely, and I don't think I'm really going out on a limb here, the highest end buyers are here. Like, this is the highest end part of the market, because I've had so many consignments just do a full circle. Like, I might as well just do it in Patreon. And I'm saying this almost as like a statement to myself, because it made me aware of like how much of the high end market is here. So again, thanks to everybody involved. It was really smooth, but more importantly, the card hit 100K, and a lot of people asked, in the Q&A, what do you think? I thought it'd go above 75, and after that, it's just unprecedented, kind of like the Illustrator, it could go anywhere. And at that point, there was a bidding war with a very well-known high-end bidder who ended up getting second place. Also, multiple people wanted to buy it afterwards, didn't have another copy to sell them, but that's what it was. That's the full breakdown on the Kangaskhan. Now, one other thing I wanted to say here, which will get us into the PSA 7 Illustrator, because I know it's what everybody wants. One thing I wanted to say is, I think the format that I'm doing is better for high-end. Because one of the biggest reasons why PSA 7 Illustrator didn't do well is that bidding format. And I'm going to give you the breakdown on that. So I had a bidding war on that Kangaskhan because it was open. Where with the PSA 7 Illustrator and the higher end cards with PWCC, I know they're bound. And let me preface and say, I love what Brent does. I'm working with them, and I love what Heritage does. Brent's in my opinion, one of the most cutting edge people in the game. I'm not pandering whatsoever. That's actually what I think. But with that said, they're bound by eBay. They can't completely control everything, and they're trying to do their best. But part of that process of the qualified bids, and I guess this just takes us into the Illustrator straight up. Part of the problem with that I noticed with the Kangaskhan that was better is that you can get into this bidding war where I don't deter people. So getting into the PSA 7 Illustrator as a contrast to the Kangaskhan, I messaged PWGC about that. I'm like, hey, what do I need to do to show you that I'm qualified? And I got some guy who just didn't know who I was. And I'm like, okay, how to accurately describe that I'm clearly qualified this? I'm like, dude, check out my eBay. Here's a text message from Brent from a day ago. What do you need? And they're like, oh, we need a bank account showing at the time 300,000. I'm like, what person keeps 300K? I mean, yes, I'm an idiot and I do that, but what normal person keeps 300K in an account? It's just not. What I'm getting at is how Heritage does this and how most people do it is, sure, you remove the troll bids and things like that, but I think that bid restriction was a huge deterrent. And here's the data behind it. The PSA 7 Illustrator didn't move. PSA 10 Charizard, Shadowless, same bid restriction, didn't move. They just rode out until the end. So, in my opinion, again, it's just my opinion, you can disagree if you want, I think the perfect storm for that card would have been going with Heritage, combining some type of strategic advertising with me and other people out there, other bigger YouTubers, so you can get the information behind it. I can really deliver on that card, and that would have been a better outlook. I think PWCC has more general awareness in the hobby, but places like Heritage have big, heavy hitter buyers, and they cater to the higher net worth individual. That's why they have a 45 business day clearing period typically, or something in that ballpark, because most guys, again, don't have 300K, 500K, $1 million in cash lying around. It's probably in some asset that they need to move, and then they wire the funds or whatever. And that's typically how it works. So I actually think the bid restriction was a disincentive. Now, with that said, let me get this immodest qualification out the way. There's not a single human on this planet who has more involvement, sales, everything with the Illustrator than me. Before PKO existed, every PSA 9 copy of the Illustrator was through me. The PSA 8s I middled. The Authentics came to me in some way or another. I've had almost majority of the Illustrators safely in my hands. And with that said, why I'm saying this immodest qualification is to say the point that I don't think the sale was bad. Do I think it could have done more? Yes. But those aren't mutually exclusive. It doesn't need to be that, do I think it could do more than inherently it's bad. 375 is not anything to sneeze at. More importantly, it's a PSA 7. It's the only PSA 7. There's no way to get a perfect inference on what it was going to do. Everyone was, in my opinion, I think making a correct assumption that, you're hearing these 7-figure offers for 9s. A lot of people can collaborate that or confirm that the 9 owners are getting these insane offers. So a lot of people just said, oh yeah, that's probably what the 7's going to do, right? Because this is the only option you have to buy a graded Illustrator in auction on eBay since the year 2000. All those things combined. Yes, there's been graded Illustrators on eBay, but in auction starting at 99 cents, that hasn't happened since the year 2000. So, therefore, a lot of people said, hey, this is probably going to do $500,000, million, and so on. which it could have. And in my opinion, the high-end stuff like that, it's all relative. Just like with the Kangaskhan, 75, 100, 125, 150. To me, it's not much of a difference because you're dealing with a truly high-end, exquisite item. It's like if you take a historic painting, Honus Wagner, it just doesn't matter. It genuinely does not matter. If you have a price tag mentality with that type of stuff, all that tells me is you have no experience with that. And I don't mean that as a chirp or a dig, but that's just what it reveals. People who are so hardcore about the pricing, you got to look at it as a general pricing. And sure, could it have done better? Yes. And I tried to highlight, I think, the perfect storm that could have achieved a better result. To really hammer that home, no pun intended, dad jokes for days, but like the hammer auctions with Heritage really it's like, all right, it's game time. On the buyer side, it's gotten under my skin. Like that one, there's been multiple things. Like the deck, that thing back there, the trainer, why am I saying trainer? The theme decks. The theme deck case I bought from Heritage, that was a bidding war. I was like, okay, I'm going to bid this. No, okay, I got to win. Just kept hitting bid till I won. I did that on artwork too. There's a painting that one, and I'm sitting there in the locker room in hockey, like bid again, because it's on the floor. I think that's the winning combo. But the thing Heritage does lack, in my opinion, just being candid, they don't have like the same like household name like PWC does. And they really do well with like the highest end, like the Illustrator, first edition boxes, things like that. So again, you need the advertisement to get people there, because I don't think they do it on their own as much. But at the end of the day, this is all just Captain Hindsight stuff. What matters is the owner and the winner. That's the only opinion that really matters at the end of the day. And ultimately, with all my experience I have with the Illustrator, I think the sale is more than fine. Like I said in my public video, I sold a PSA 9 for $55,000 5 years ago, and it's crazy how people were just pooping on that for being too high at the time, and now it's the opposite. It's like, you can't make anyone happy. Don't waste any time trying to. At the end of the day, it's just a one sale of the only PSA 7 Illustrator. I thought it was fine, but my critiques would be the legitimacy of, or the restriction bid thing. I just don't like it. I was restricted, like literally me. I didn't want to send them a bank statement or whatever they were asking. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, okay, that's just a deterrent. Like, you're losing an actual qualified bidder, and I was like, that's fine. I don't need another Illustrator, but it's just not good. Like, the Heritage process is better in that scenario. Again, love all these guys, but your qualifications are up front. And if you do try to do a little troll bid, enjoy losing all your assets, because they say right there in the fine print, they will pursue you. And guess, just a pro tip for anyone out there who wants to challenge it, majority of Heritage's employees are lawyers. The guys who do the consignments are lawyers. The guys who are processing the cards are lawyers. I think it's hard to find anyone who knows Heritage. I think it's hard to find two things at Heritage: people that aren't named Joe, and then people who aren't lawyers, because that's like half of their employees. So, it's just a better situation they have. And I'm doing a lot of free advertising for them right now. But yeah, again, this is all just pontificating Captain Hindsight stuff. It was a good sale at the end of the day. Yeah, I think it could have done more, but it just doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter what anybody says, because again, it's just those two people involved, the winner and the seller. Hopefully both of them are happy. I know the person's in here and probably watching. If people do this in the future, if you go with these places, you got to reach out to me. I'm going to add value to you. I'll find people who do add value to the card. I think I had people talking big about bidding $500,000, and I don't know if part of it was the bid restriction. Who knows? But it's just a lot of lessons to learn, basically. Everybody was excited, and I think it was exciting at the end of the day. But yeah, it could have done better with what I highlighted. So there you go. There's my stream of conscious breakdown of the Illustrator. I know a lot of people wanted it. There's so much. I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but there it is. I'm going to have to cut it there so we can move along. Now, another thing I wanted to get into PWCC before we get into purchases and sales is that I think there's too many cards going at once. And I don't know how they can temper it, because PWCC is just doing their job. They're just processing what they get. But there's so many cards to keep up with that it's the only ones that really do well, or that really have a nice home run result, are the standout cards, whether it's a high graded Shining, first edition base, or these trophies or whatever. A lot of the other stuff, it's a buyer's market on there. There's stuff that I was watching, I'm like, this is going lower than what I'm selling it for. That's what's crazy to me. So what PWCC is becoming is its own market in itself. Yo Dog. it's so big that it's becoming its own market where like you have cards that hit a record, you have cards that do poorly, you have cards in the middle, and there's just so much going on and so many cards that it's becoming its own little marketplace, its own entire market. So that's something I want to throw in there. It might be common sense for a lot of people, but I really noticed that this last block because it was the most amount of Pokemon cards ever. And there was a lot of stuff from like even some of the same cards. Like you had people in Discord voice like, man, like this one's my card and it's going 1,000 under the other one, because there's another one. It's like kind of circa 2017 when you had like the 4 Horsemen Mewtwo's going. There were 4 PSA 10 Mewtwo's, first edition base, at once. The most amount of Mewtwo's ever auctioned probably in the history of the hobby. And of course, that's terrible. If you had any of those Mewtwo's, that's awful. So that's the risk you run, sending to them. And I think at the end of the day, they provide a fantastic service. I think they're an integral part of the market. Just trying to break down that it's getting so big that they are becoming their own market. And it's going to have its ebb and flows. It's going to have, cards that are buyers markets, cards that are sellers market. And I really saw that this time around more than ever. Okay, now getting into purchases. I know it's going to be a long one, guys, so sorry. Apologies in advance. Purchases, I did a lot of card ads this month. I did some Diamond and Pearl promos from Japan. Victory medals, 2006 to 2010. I bought like probably 60 of them in total. Just bought them at whatever the market price was. Someone showed me one of those hole-in-the-wall sites from Japan. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go buy those. I think it was someone in Discord. I can't remember, it was a Visor. I can't remember who it was that mentioned it. But yeah, I just bought out a lot of the Victory medals because I think they're too cheap. Especially after all the Q&A questions. Everyone's like, yeah, I think this is an affordable trophy. And I'm like, yeah, I think you guys are right. I think it is. And I'm just going to put my money where my mouth is and, take that risk. I think they're just a good bang for your buck. Some of them even had the same art as like the Pikachu Victory Ring. And, I just thought it was a good purchase in the end of the day. And yeah, just another mixture of miscellaneous purchases here and there. I've gotten less collection offers for English stuff, which I thought was interesting. And I think it's because a lot of people are trying to like maximize their return. And what I'm getting more of on the English end are people who are like, hey, love your channel, dude. You're such an inspiration. Like, I'd marry you if I could. But anyway, I got these cards. What's the best way to sell them? I get a lot of that. Like, I get a lot of like, just oiling me up, just serving me the steak dinner and then being like, so how do I maximize my profit on my entire collection? I'm getting a lot of that stuff right now on the English end. And what that tells me is there's just a lot of demand. There's a lot of people who, see that opportunity right now. I got guys at hockey. Later today, I'm going to a game and I got to look at a guy's Pokemon cards because that's where we are right now. So again, just trying to really, as I'm always doing, capture everything and try to give you a breakdown on it. But that's what I have for purchases. Moving along into sales, I feel like this video is like, it's going to be a 26th anniversary by the time this thing's done. All right, sales. We have a few sheets. Pretty good sales, I would say, this round. A lot of higher $100 sales that I noticed. So for boxes, I sold 60 Shiny Vs, nothing under 140 a piece. I sold out of all the Rapid and Single Strike. I think it was 90 total. I still have some left. I usually keep a case, like emergency case. So I sold all the Rapid Strike and Single Strike that I wanted to, no less than $90 a box. Getting into the individual cards, we have a lot. I have PSA 9 Ivysaur Web promo, $75. PSA 9 Ancient Mew, sold a couple of those for $195 and then $200 as well. PSA 10 Gem Mint Mewtwo Evolutions, these are from the auctions I ran, $190. PSA 9 Dragonite Evolutions, $87. PSA 9 Pidgeot Evolutions, $51. PSA 9 Misty's Determination, $63. PSA 10 Professor Sycamore, Japanese, that's the XY promo, $246, $100. Then we have a PSA 7, yes, Oakley's Airdos from the movie deck, that was $26. PSA 10 Porygon Z, $75. PSA 10 LaRuse's Minun, $80, that's also movie deck promo. PSA 10 Teddiursa, LP promo number 10, $106. I had a couple of these, I'm like, what are you doing, eBay? I had no offer option on there. Somehow people threw in an offer and they got it. I'm like, well, since you paid, I'm going to ship it out to you. But it was like half of what I had my price at. I don't know how they did it. And I got hacked. Like they got in there and they threw offer in. I don't know how it happened. But it happened again later on, I think, with the Mary. I don't know what it was about that card. Maybe I'm just too much of a boomer and I didn't realize that there's an offer option somehow. But anyway, I digress. PSA 9 Espeon file promo from Japan, $100. PSA 8 Donphan Prime, 150, Japanese. PSA 10 Sneasel EX, 200, Japanese. PSA 9 Kingdra EX, Japanese, 150. Got a lot of EX sales this month, and noticed that. Those must be on the come up. PSA 10 Chin Chow. McDonald's promo, $100. PSA 8 Electrode Prime, 50. PSA 9 War Turtle Japanese. Base set, 78.69. PSA 9 Squirtle base set, 98. PSA 9 Charmander Japanese base set. All those are Japanese, by the way. $80. Those are from the auctions. Then we had a PSA 9 LT Surge, Electabuzz, and Magneton earning 53 each. Then we had PSA 10 Primal Groudon 4, Japanese, 200. PSA 8 Rayquaza, that's from Dragon Frontiers, Japanese, 140. PSA 10 Mary Perriez, number 8 LP promo for $100. PSA 10 Ultimate Zone Advent Arceus promo, a lot of words. 48 DPT promo, 300. PSA 10 Sharpedo EX, 160. PSA 9 M Charizard from the deck, Flashfire, that's now like, what, more than 5 years. That one went for 150. PSA 10 Bellossom Info Pack 2001, 175. I think that card's a little underrated, kind of flies on the radar. PSA 10 Charizard EX Koro 30 XY promo, 300. PSA 10 M Charizard from the Japanese Wild Blaze Flashfire, 300. PSA 9 Slowking Koro, 200. PSA 10 Armor Mewtwo, 300. Multiple, so two of them, 300 each. PSA 9 Master Ball Quick Start, 200. I think I either raised the price or removed that one because I thought it was too cheap. PSA 10 Altaria Full Art, 200. That one's English. PSA 10 Vileplume Japanese Wind from the Sea, $200. PSA 10 Diglett Web, 151.69. I see you. I see you, buyer, out there with the 69 cents. PSA 9 Gardevoir EX Japanese, 150. Shiny Legends ETB that went in auction for 340. Then we have a lot of first edition base commons that I put in auction for that consignment block. We had a Pony, all these are going to be PSA 10. PSA 10 Ponyta, first edition base, 510. Sandshrew, 510. Diglett, 411. Magnemite, 450. Rattata, 285. Drowsy, 295. Coughing, 425. Pidgey, 370. Poliwag, 293, and then Tangela, 305. And actually, the guy I sent that to, I might package it multiple bubble mailers, I think, and then a box, flat rate box around it. And he thanked me because apparently someone just left it out in the winter storm and it got through a couple of them, but the inner one protected him at the end of the day. So glad it did. If you're in here, I'm glad it made it safely. PSA 10 2005 Victory Medal Silver, $500. PSA 9 Charizard CP6, $600. PSA 10 Here Comes Team Rocket, $700. PSA 10 Dark Ivysaur Game Boy, $850. Also, I raised the price on the Here Comes Team Rocket. As some people know, I graded like 20 of those back in the day. And they're getting pretty tough to find ungraded anymore. So next up, we have Evolution boxes. I sold one for $930 in auction, and I sold the rest of them for $1,000 each. Buy it now. And I think I did about a case of them and just sold out. PSA 10 Pikachu Shadowless Yellow Cheek, 1,000. Two CP6 boxes, $1,500 each. PSA 10 Charmander First Edition base, $2,500. Actually pulled that listing. I sold one to a Patreon member. Happy birthday, by the way. And then I just pulled it because I don't want to keep selling at that price. Again, just being transparent with you. I'm going to do the same with Squirtle. I think I have one more up there. When that one goes, I'm just going to let it stay off eBay for a while. Just because, again, I can't get a ton of them. 2013 Champions Festival, top 16, $710. That's the one I mentioned earlier. The Chespin cards, these are some of the consignments I did. Chespin Art Academy, ungraded, $2,800. That one, whoever won that could probably get an 8, I would say 8 worst case scenario. That was a consignment. That's why it was ungraded, just selling it as is. Kind of like, I had a Lily promo too. Whoever won that, you probably could have got 9 or 10 on it. Anything that I get ungraded, I'm going to be conservative on the condition. So if a Patreon member did win that, you definitely have room there for margin if it gets graded. PSA 10 Gem Mint Pikachu Art Academy, the Noodles copy, $9,102.69. 69 cents is the new meme that is real life. PSA 10 Espeon Gold Star, Pop 5, English, $22,100. And then last but not least, of course, the PSA 9 Kangaskhan trophy card that sold for $100,000 and $100. And congratulations to the winner of that. Glad it all ended up working out. That is definitely a once in a lifetime card. And there you go. That's what I have for sales. And all that we have left now are overrated and underrated, and it's going to be a fun one because they're very similar. So overrated for this month is McDonald's promos. You probably saw it coming. English McDonald's promos are overrated. Now keep in mind, overrated doesn't mean the price is going to go down. Underrated doesn't mean the price is going to stonk. That's not what it means. It just means that this is my opinion on what I think currently is overrated, kind of like what I was talking about the speculation, the English modern earlier. Doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater. It just means that I think there is some overrated element in there. And right now, for the McDonald's English stuff, I think the best way to capture that is that if you wait till it's a little bit more boring, out of the way, people aren't talking about it, that's probably going to be a better time to buy. Even if the price doesn't really go down much, you know at least at that point when it's forgotten or not as hot as now, that the price is held. So once it's not at McDonald's anymore, like 6 months, even further down the road, once supply is pretty much just secondhand market, if prices haven't plummeted or if they're just holding and they've gone down a bit, you at least have that like time and data to tell you that, hey, this is what they're holding at right now. And if you want to buy, you can. You know, of course, if you want to risk and wait, maybe it'll go down, maybe it'll go up a bit. Who knows? But as it stands, out of recording this, I think it's definitely overrated. I'm probably not saying anything too risky. I'm sure most people are like, yep, obvious, right? You know, McDonald's stuff is crazy. Also, some data behind that, you know, giving you some private SM Pratt information. I got multiple guys, whether it's through Instagram, Discord, wherever, messaging me like, hey, I'll give you a case for 1,000. I'll give you a case for whatever. I thought about doing a opening now. I think, you know, the moment's passed because things move so quickly. You have like a 1 week window to get something done. But I thought about doing one where I'm saying, hey, you know, I bought this case, I'm giving them all away. You know, everyone's always like talking about the kids and all that stuff. I thought about doing that, and all you have to do is prove that you're like a teacher or you work like in a hospital or somewhere that I can, hopefully it's not some like big brain scalper like, yeah, here's my whole family of 20 kids and they're like, give me 20 packs. But yeah, it's one of those things right now where it's super hot. You know, it's just super popular, but there's a lot of it out there. And again, I think if you wait, the cost of capital for $1,000 on a case like that, you know, I don't know. Maybe it could go up. I'm not really talking about the price point. I'm talking more about that there's so much talk about it right now, so much hype, that if you let that just sizzle out a bit, you know, again, even if the price doesn't move, at least like 6 months, 8 months from now, when it's in the shadows, I'd feel more confident personally buying at that time because I'm like, okay, it's proven itself a bit. You know, it's been out for a while. It's not the talk of the town anymore. So yeah, that's just my take on overrated. It's honestly really tough to find a hardcore overrated thing in a booming market, but that's the one that I picked. Now, for underrated, we have McDonald's promos from Japan. So overrated is McDonald's promos English, underrated is McDonald's promos from Japan. And don't worry, I have data to back this up. So McDonald's promos, we're going to go back a little bit, do a little story time. Those are things that I think I have probably bought for 10 years steady. Slow. They used to be slow sellers. Now they picked up a bit. They have unique art, most of them. Unique release. They weren't released in English. That's a lot of winning right there. It's a lot of good things you want to hear. Today, I cannot find them like I could 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I could hop on Yahoo. I could get on eBay. I could go wherever. Someone's got a mint ungraded Pikachu, whatever it is, Mew, or even going down the line of Squirtle, any of them, the P promos. You know, there's a lot that was available back then in mint condition. Today, there isn't. So it's twofold. You don't have the availability in general. More specifically, the gradability on average is much more difficult today than it was. Back then, you had more availability and the gradability was easier. And now both of those have disintegrated a bit. So they are more scarce today. And on top of that, I don't think the price point of a PSA 10 or whatever is fully capturing that incongruency. I would say this is a good qualifier for the AP ratio. I think there's a lot of Japanese ungraded stuff that's right there with the graded final price. To me, that shouldn't be that way. It should always be like this, you know, because that risk should be there. Like if I take that risk on that ungraded card and it hits a 10, that should be your reward, right? The risk reward ratio. But if I take that risk and I'm already paying the same price as the PSA 10, it's probably not worth it. I should probably just get the bird in the hand. That's the classic AP ratio scenario, the availability price ratio. I think that applies for a lot of the McDonald's stuff. Also, as I mentioned, the P promo set, there's the P promo set out there that is part of a bigger promo set. There's those people who really want to chase that P promo set. Shouting out to PFM again. You have a whole set of cards that, you know, includes McDonald's, includes like other promotional things, trainer releases, whatever it is, the coveted '08 Tropical Wind, one of the rarest cards. You know, it's a nice mixture of options. You know, there's a lot of really rare stuff, a lot of more affordable stuff in there. But point being is, a lot of the McDonald's stuff is part of the P promotion release. And for some people, they like doing that whole binder. They like doing all the P cards. So there is a lot going on with the McDonald's Japanese stuff. I think it's one of those things that kind of flies on the radar. In my opinion, if you had to ask me, would I buy right now, as I'm making this, English or Japanese, I'd definitely be heavier on the Japanese side. That doesn't mean I won't buy any English at all. You know, even when I say something's overrated, that doesn't mean I'm not buying any of it. You know, just like with English Modern, I'm still buying some of it, just not going as hard as I would with EV Heroes. So it's kind of the same for the Japanese McDonald's versus the English. You know, the Japanese for me is not only undervalued in the sense of like market and AP ratio and all that. I think it just has a better history to it. You know, it's the OG. Like, this is what they were doing from the jump back in Japan. They did this for a long time. And again, that exclusive artwork. Like, let's give that one more shout out. Like, in English, it's just a common with a stamp, maybe a different hollow pattern, but it's the same artwork. Like, that stuff grinds my gears. Like, give me unique art. Like, if you gave me Delivery Pikachu Pokemon Center in McDonald's English, I feel the hype. But like, I'm not getting that excited over a stamp. I'm not getting that excited over an alternate hollow. But like, for the McDonald's stuff, like Sunset Mew, pretend that's not a good artwork. Like, go ahead and lie to me right now that Sunset Mew's not beautiful. Like, go ahead and tell me that. It's like, that card looks so good. There's so many good arts in there. Like, the Squirtle comes to mind. All that stuff. Like, even the Slowpoke. A lot of it. The Pikachu's decent. There's multiple of them. You know, there's even like that meme with like the one, the cloud. He kind of looks like the little reaction meme from Reddit. And there's like a cloud in the background anyway. I think they have a lot to offer, and I think the price point right now is underrated again, in my opinion. So there it is, guys. I don't know how long this has been. Apologies again if it ran on for a while, and you know, that the talk about the illustrator and things like that, I know a lot of people really wanted me to give a full breakdown, and it's just informal. You know, I could talk forever about that card. Only thing I can add is I get so much information, it's hard to figure out which things to relay to you guys. You know, when this was going on, I had a guy with an 8 who's like, hey, you know, what do you think this will do? I have a guy with a 9 that's like, what do you think a 9's worth right now? And I'm not even going to talk about the offers I get on eBay, because I don't take a lot of them seriously. Like, when people give me $1 million offers, 2.5 million the other day, I don't know how to take any of that seriously. I'm like, is this real? Is it not? So, you know, there's so much going on. There's so much information I get, but I think that's the best breakdown I can give for the illustrator. That overall, I thought it was a good sale. I think it was fine price. Could have done more, sure. But I tried to highlight, you know, my opinion on it. And again, all this is my opinion. If it was like math and it was like 2 + 2 = 4, of course now that's even being challenged. But you know, if it was like that and in absolutes, I think everybody, it wouldn't be as fun. You know, it's nice not to know. It's nice to learn from the market. It's nice to listen and, you know, adapt as we go and grow. So there it is. I've said enough. It's been long enough. Thank you guys. You're all my reasons for why I'm still doing all this. For all the new people, feel free to ask your questions below. I'll do the top 50 in a couple weeks in the Q&A. It's my favorite times. There it is. Happy Pokemon Day. Gonna keep on keeping on. You know, deal, let me know how I feel, and that's pretty much it, guys. See you in a couple weeks.